Hello, welcome back. I'm not even going to mess around today, we're going to get straight into it. Today in this video I want to share 10 things that people with invisible and less visible illnesses want you to know. This year Invisible Disabilities Week kicks off on the 17th of October I believe, and though I think this is more of a thing in the USA, I will take any and every opportunity to talk about life with an invisible or perhaps a less visible disability. It feels wrong to say I hope you find it relatable because I hope you don't have these same struggles. I'm not going to dive into my own medical history with this one. I will link some blog posts in the description about my own chronic illness story. Otherwise, yeah, let's do this. So number one is a very simple baseline one, despite what I said earlier, and that is invisible is not equal to imaginary. Just because you can't see somebody's symptoms or their disability with your own two eyes, that does not imply that what they're experiencing doesn't exist. Number two is that the term invisible disabilities can include both mental illnesses and physical illnesses. But in saying that, I want to acknowledge that this does not mean that they need to compete with each other. This is a narrative that we see so many times on the internet, and it's a narrative that has existed as long as I've been on the internet, definitely. And that is people saying things like, oh, if only mental illnesses were treated the same as physical illnesses, with this kind of assumption that physical illnesses tend to be more believed or valid. And whilst perhaps that may be true in some circumstances, I would suggest that anybody who holds that attitude does a bit more reading about the challenges of living and being diagnosed with a chronic illness. Number three is a bit of a topical one at the moment, and that is that the sunflower lanyard was originally ours, and believe me, we are working to reclaim it. These were introduced as a concept a few years ago as a way of symbolising that somebody might have an invisible disability in public spaces, meaning they might need a little bit of additional support or understanding. And the scheme was starting to work really well. It was beginning to be picked up more and more. During the pandemic at the beginning, the sunflower lanyard was also used by people who were medically exempt from wearing a face mask. And the sunflower lanyard on the surface seemed like a really good way of symbolising that and encouraging others to have compassion and empathy, I suppose. However, what started to happen after that was that other members of the British public who had perhaps a little bit less compassion and empathy for the people around them, people who were not disabled or not medically exempt from wearing masks, clocked onto the fact that if they wore one of these sunflower lanyards, they weren't going to be challenged for not wearing a mask themselves. So all of a sudden, this powerful, engaging symbol of an invisible disability began to be taken advantage of by people who didn't need it, and they just had their own interests at the forefront of their mind. Since that started happening, I've worn my sunflower lanyard out and about whilst also wearing a mask, and I've actually had people tell me, oh, you don't need to be wearing a mask because you've got one of these on. And it's so sad and so frustrating because that to me suggests that these are losing their original meaning, and we need to reclaim it because personally I think these were making quite an impact and they were a good thing, so we are taking this back, we're working on it. Number four might seem like a bit of a head scratcher at first, but I have a whole other video on this which is what I'm going to direct you to, and that is that people with invisible and less visible illnesses may still use mobility aids. They may still be a wheelchair user, they may occasionally use a crutch or a stick or any other kind of mobility aid and still be a person with an invisible illness. I can never ever say this word right, but one example of this is myself. I am an ambulatory wheelchair user, that's the word I can't say, which means I will use a wheelchair sometimes and not other times, and I will link that video down below and in one of the cards somewhere, and that is all about my experiences of using mobility aids as somebody with an invisible illness, because there is a lot to say on that one. Number five is that people with invisible illnesses experience a heck of a lot of stigma and gaslighting, both from medical professionals, the general public, and whilst accessing social support, even the support that they're entitled to. Because of this, many people with invisible illnesses have internalised some very damaging beliefs about themselves and their lived experiences from having them questioned. And this really can have a lasting effect on a lot of people, and I feel that this is something that particularly impacts, although it affects all disabled people and we shouldn't discount that, I think it particularly impacts people with invisible and less visible illnesses. Yeah, not fun, not fun. And often these negative experiences come from the very people and systems that are designed to help us. On a similar note to that last one, the next assumption, not an assumption, this isn't an assumptions video, what are we doing? The next thing that people with invisible illnesses want you to know, especially if you are somebody in a customer facing role or a public sector role, is that you cannot make judgments and assumptions about a person's individual needs purely from what you can see with your own two eyes. And again, from personal experience, I can say that questioning somebody's disability when they request support is absolutely unacceptable. This may or may not be a PSA to the staff at Leeds train station who once left me sat on the dirty floor of a train because the wheelchair I'd requested to get me off the train to take me to the entrance hadn't turned up because the person first wanted to question whether I was actually disabled and therefore entitled to use the station wheelchair. That's not good. Don't do that, please. Number 7 makes me a bit nervous to share, but I'm going to do it anyway, and that is that being disabled does not exempt you from ableism, whether internalised or intention, towards people with invisible and less visible conditions. Sadly, this is something I have experienced in the disability community, and a lot of the time I really don't think it is intentional, but it can make you feel as though you're less worthy of belonging to the disability community, I suppose, if that's the right choice of words. Just because you are a disabled person yourself does not excuse you from doing the work when it comes to invisible and less visible conditions and making sure that the equality and inclusion that is so important to you generalises to this community of people with invisible illnesses as well. Number 8 is when you see us out and about, that means that you're seeing us on a good day. You may happen to see them when they're just out enjoying their friends, enjoying their life, doing the things they want, and they might seem like any other non-disabled person. Just because you've seen them on that occasion does not mean that you're going to see the potential aftermath that comes from that simple trip out of the house or whatever it was they happen to be doing. So I personally believe that invisible illnesses are invisible in more ways than one. So it's not only that you can't see the symptoms, but often you can't see the symptom management and the condition management that comes with having a chronic or a fluctuating health condition. So you might have seen them out and about for however long that was, but you might not have seen them ill and suffering in bed for days afterwards, as well as the necessary resting and pacing and preparation that would come before any trip out of the house as well. It's a whole shebang, getting out of the house and doing things and living life. What a concept. It takes a lot of strategizing sometimes. I got so enthusiastic about that last point that I've just completely unplugged my microphone, so apologies if the sound has changed a little bit. Hopefully it's still okay. Number 9 is quite similar to that previous point, and that is that what you see on social media is never going to tell you absolutely everything about a person's illness or disability. And because of that, somebody sharing bits and pieces on social media is not under any circumstances an invitation for you to make judgments or offer unsolicited advice. Again, that's one that I feel quite profoundly sometimes as somebody who is quite active on social media. It can be a really powerful and validating tool in so many ways, but to keep it that way, we have to be mindful about the way we interact with other people. And number 10, the final one, is that there is currently a point of discussion going on in the disability community about whether any invisible illness is truly invisible, whether the concept of an invisible illness actually exists. The argument made is that often a lot of people with invisible illnesses have learned to mask their struggles they're facing, their symptoms. They've learned to hide it and conceal it from other people, making it less easy to spot. But that really, if a person looks hard enough or they know what sort of things to look for, that they would be able to see a person's illness and it wouldn't really be invisible. And it's a tricky one because while there is definitely validity in that, and to an extent that is something that I can relate to, there are other times where, there are other times where I really do feel that my illness is invisible. I'll sometimes look back at photos of myself and I know, even though it's me, and I know what I was experiencing at that point in time when that photo was taken, I would be able to scrutinise my face and still not find any outward signs of what I was going through. And that's not because I was masking per se, it's just sometimes you just cannot, in my opinion, you just cannot see these things. And that's why I think I am sticking with invisible illness. I've started using the term less visible illness more often as well, because personally I think that is something that fits me better. So that's an interesting one, and I'd be really interested to hear other people's thoughts on that as well. I really hope you consider this your call to action to stand by your friends with invisible illnesses, to be an ally for the invisible illness community. To be honest, it's a really difficult thing to live with, more often than not, but having the support and empathy from the people around you can genuinely make such a difference. It really can. In the meantime, if you feel there are other people in your life who might benefit from this video, either as somebody with an invisible illness or somebody who wants to support someone with an invisible illness, please feel free to share this with them. You're always welcome to share your own thoughts or experiences in the comments as well. Personally, I think the more that we can share on this topic, the more we can educate people, hopefully not in too much of a preachy way, because that's not something I'm personally very keen on. And the more we can do that, the more change we can facilitate. If you happen to be new here, there are other videos about chronic illness and disability on my channel. I will link a few other blog posts that might be of interest as well. But if you've made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. You can subscribe if you want, and I will see you next time.